I didn't even think about that because it is, you're giving mom a skill, but then her kids can go to school too.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
And welcome back to another episode of Break Room Banter.
It is a hairstylist adjacent podcast where each week,
Two friends
who also happen to be hairstylists,
break down our weeks in the break room. I'm your host, Hunter Walden.
and I am your hostess, Erica the Redhead.
And today, all the way from Virginia,
Virginia.
is Bestie Ray.
Yay! Ray just taught a class at our salon.
Yes.
I did.
Yeah, and so we wanted to have Ray on because she just had a pretty incredible experience traveling across the entire world, all the way to Bali, and she educated in impoverished areas. And what I'm excited about is to talk about the challenge you had with teaching without speaking the language. And I think that's so cool.
Well, and I do think that we should point out the fact that it was with Hair Aid,
Which
right? Which we
Yes.
have talked about on the podcast. And you heard the podcast
Uh-huh.
and decided you wanted to do it, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So
it
I
was
just think
really
that
cool.
deserves mentioning. So.
she went because of us.
Because of us. No, I'm just saying it's cool. And if you're a listener of the podcast, you will know about these people.
Yeah.
Because we talked about them.
Yeah,
That's
it
all.
was the coolest thing ever because probably a month before that episode came out, I had been thinking like, I want to go on a trip somewhere. I want to do something cool. I want to use my gifts. What can I do and how can I do it? And then the podcast episode came out and I was sitting there getting ready for work. And the second that I heard you guys talking about it, I got like butterflies. And I was late to work that day because I was on the website looking up all the different locations. And then I thought about it for probably all of 2 days and then I signed up.
I love that.
Yeah.
And then, so how long of a time period was it from when you signed up to when you actually went?
9 months.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So almost a whole year.
Yep.
Cool.
And what did you do to prepare for it?
What didn't I do? I did a lot of research.
Uh-huh.
So my intention was to go by myself,
Okay.
do this project, spend some extra days in Bali vacationing by myself. So I did all kinds of research.
Mhm.
I was looking up different social media posts by Hair Aid. I was trying to, kind of get the vibe from them. I looked up all of the different areas in Bali, joined Facebook groups, followed Instagram pages, like everything you can think of to prepare.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, then while we're on the topic of preparing, you said something yesterday that I think is worth mentioning about the finances of actually going on the trip. So for those that don't know, Ray runs a studio, like a suite. So she's independent. She doesn't have sick leave. She doesn't have time off pay,
Yeah.
which in most salons we don't either.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what stops a lot of people from doing stuff like this is the financial aspect of it. How
Yeah.
much is it going to cost? How am I going to take 2 full weeks out of the salon? So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I pretty immediately, once I signed up, I knew that I was going to be taking 3 weeks off of work with travel and time off and everything like that. So I kind of did the math. I figured if I'm going to be out of the salon for 3 weeks, that's 3 weeks worth of income I'm going to have to make up. There's 3 weeks worth of rent that has to be paid. There's the flights and then the cost of the trip and all of the travel costs. And I just figured out, I totaled all of that up, divided it by 9 and said, okay, every month I have to save this amount of money and I'll be fine by the time the project rolls around.
And did it work out that way?
It did.
Cool.
Sweet. Is the pricing really transparent on the website, or is it like you have to kind of get through the process and then they're like, this is how much it is?
No, so the pricing on the website is the price that you pay. It's in Australian dollars. So when I paid for it, I definitely thought that I was paying more than I was because of the conversions between US and Australian. But that covers pretty much everything. You get emailed like a welcome guide almost, and they talk about how much money you should probably be prepared to spend on things like dinner. And then your flights, you book those. So how much you spend on those is completely up to you. And then that's it.
Yeah. Is this the first trip to this is not the first trip that Hair Aid has taken to Bali, correct?
No.
Okay. And where are all the places that you can go?
Bali, Philippines. I think there's 2 locations in the Philippines. Cambodia, Guatemala, and Thailand.
Okay.
You have questions?
I was waiting for you to finish. It seemed like you had a line of questions. Okay, no. You went to Bali, so was it like? Did you have a lot of extra expenses, or was it like everything was included in your hotel? Do they have hotels? Are you staying with other people there, or like?
Yeah, so your cost for the hotel for the week is included.
Mhm.
You do stay with someone else in the room. So I had a roommate. I'm pretty sure everyone on the project had a roommate. And then you're good. You're there Sunday through Friday. You're
Okay.
good through Friday night. So you just have to check out of the hotel by Saturday. And then everything after that is up to you. I was in Bali for just under 2 weeks and I spent less than $400 US.
Yeah, I know it's cheap
So,
over there.
yeah.
When I think of Bali, I think of like the influencers going to Bali.
Well,
like,
here's the thing. A lot of influencers go to Bali because it's so freaking cheap there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Americans that run Amazon stores and only generate $800 and live like kings. You know what I mean? Because it is relatively inexpensive over there.
Mhm.
But, yeah, that's cool.
The thing that I've learned is that those places where people are going because it looks so beautiful and it's so nice and it's really cheap to travel there, oftentimes those are the places in the world that are like the most broken, that need the most assistance, things like that. Like it's cheap for a reason. And you see on Instagram the really beautiful parts, which I was fortunate enough to see afterwards in like my fun time. But seeing the really not beautiful parts first definitely like gives you a whole different perspective.
It makes you appreciate the beautiful parts even more when you're like, oh, okay.
Well, and the thing nobody talks about is it's actually, at least for me, it was really hard to get out of this mindset of I spent a week in the dump where people live in piles of garbage in living conditions I have never in my life seen and couldn't have even dreamed of in my worst nightmares. And it's actually hard to enjoy those places because you get so connected to these women throughout the week and you get so like deep into it that when you go to these nice places afterwards, you almost feel guilty because you are not living the same way that they are. And it's hard to think like, wow, well, why should I be enjoying something this nice when those people don't even have food? They don't even have a roof over their head. They live in garbage. Why should I be here enjoying this nice, beautiful resort and all of these like things like that? It's actually really hard to get out of that mindset.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Right. And this is in their backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And you were fortunate enough to travel across the world to go see it.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting perspective on that.
And you are an absolute emotional wreck after the project is over.
I feel like I would be too.
I was crying every single day for at least 2-3 weeks afterwards.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And it would be the littlest things that would trigger it. And it would be the littlest memories that would pop up. And and like, I don't even know why I was crying half the time. I just was.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
So were you like that when you were there? Like after day one, did you go home and have a moment? Or were you like, it was afterwards when you were like kind of realizing?
So I think me personally, because I can't speak on everyone's experience, but for me, I think I kind of like was blinded just by the end goal of like, okay, today's day one, we did this, tomorrow's this, and you get really focused on like what you're doing that you almost have to build this emotional wall to where you can't, because you can't show up and see where they live and then start crying for so many reasons. You can't do that. So you kind of do have to kind of like detach yourself from it a little bit. And then afterwards, let it all sink in, process all of it, and then release all of it.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I was getting at is like, I mean, obviously you're not going to go in and start crying, but like, were you in the moment like, oh my gosh, or were you, because I feel like I would be kind of like you said, put up an emotional wall, get through I would be like, I've waited so long for this. I want to see it all the way through to the end. How is this going to go? And be kind of more in that, but I don't know. Just curious. So,
yeah, and there's a lot of like moving parts to it, right? So like it's 100+ degrees every day with 95% humidity. So I'm having a hard enough time like just remembering to stay hydrated. Like little things everywhere you go, everyone's speaking different languages. So then you're kind of like a little overstimulated from all of that, figuring out little, like we had three different teams. And so we were going to 3 different locations. So then it's great. So we're back from the dump, but what about the people in the women's prison? What about the people in the men's prison? Okay, now we're doing team debrief and all of these things. And because it was my first project, it was really kind of taking in like, how do they do, how do they structure team debriefs? Like, what's my expectation in that? Okay, now are we all going to go out to dinner together? And then how does that work? And so you get really caught up in like the just day-to-day things that you can really walk into these environments and really, I think mainly because you have to, like kind of just, oh, okay, this is what we're doing. I got to go to the women's prison for one day, and I walked in, and there's just certain things when you walk into a prison that you can't do. Certain facial expressions you just can't do. Like, that you really have to kind of be a little bit more emotionless. And you just do it.
So something that we talked about yesterday was you felt like when you got there were a couple people that had already gone through this experience, and they kind of like jumped in and started doing the things, right? So that's something we didn't talk about on the last podcast with Alana, was what to expect when you get there. So what is the structure of, okay, we're in Bali now, we're all together. What are we doing day one?
So the thing with structure is that there's a loose guideline, but it's not structured. And it kind of can't be structured because every location, even within the same country that you're going to, is so different. And every group of people and trainees that you have, they're all so different that the structure kind of, it doesn't exist, and you can't really see why until the end of the project, why it's like that. But when you get there, you do have one day before you start training all of the women where in the hotel, we all meet at like a meeting point. We had this room by the pool that we kept all of our stuff in. And so we all met there in the morning and packed all of our kits and things like that. And the leader, Selena, just kept telling me, because I had a lot of questions, and she just kept telling me, like, you'll see when we get there. You'll see when we get there. And I said, oh, okay.
I don't do well with that.
I'm like, and I'm trying to be better about that. Okay, like, we got this. And she went with us to the dump on day one since none of us had been there before. So she kind of showed up and just showed us the ropes of like.
Is that actually what it's called?
Yeah, that's, I was going to say for clarity.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
You've been saying that, but I was like, hang on just a second. I'm really curious.
Yeah, it's definitely not like our landfills here, which is kind of what I was expecting. But yeah, it's the Bali dump.
Oh, like the trash dump.
Yeah.
Like this is where they're living.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you meant it as like the projects.
No.
The projects are something different. Yeah. Okay.
This is like
the actual dump.
Can we put like pictures or videos up on the screen? Okay, so I'll give you some so you can see, so the viewers can see. It is quite literally piles of trash. And day in and day out, like the road that leads into it is actually beautiful. From the main road, you wouldn't guess that that's where it's leading to, because it's got all these different statues and plants, and then you get in there and it's just all day long, just garbage trucks coming in and dumping trash.
And what was the response from a group of obviously more privileged people walking through that area?
I didn't know how people were going to receive us.
Yeah.
Because Hair Aid is an organization that's been there before, there were a few trainees, like former trainees that had graduated that are still walking around, that still live there, because they show up consistently twice a year, every year. It's they welcome you because they know like you're good people.
Yeah.
It's hard to not feel like you're standing out because you are. But they really do receive you well, because even if they can't communicate with you, because almost no one there speaks English, even if they can't communicate with you, their actions and things like that communicate well enough for them. And I think ours did too, where like they know that we're showing up with good intentions. They know that we're coming here and offering them something that they didn't have. At the very least, they know that we have something to offer them that they don't already have, right? Like they can get something from us, but they're so appreciative. Even if they can't say that, they show it. There was a newborn baby that had just been born in it's like a big community of people that live there. So we got to one day walk down and meet he was 4 days old.
Aww.
So we got to meet the new baby. One of the girls on the trip from England had even brought some clothes. And so the day that she got to go, she got to drop off little newborn clothes. and they love it. It's so crazy that they just love showing off the little things that they do have. They don't have a lot, but what they do have, they are more than happy to welcome you into their homes. They will let you hold their babies. They'll show you everything.
And you are a sucker for some kids. You're like, I want to hold your baby.
Yep. Well, and I didn't want to there because I knew going to Bali that there were certain things with babies that they don't do. Like for the first, I think it's like 100 and something days they're alive, they don't put their feet on the ground. So because I didn't want to overstep cultural boundaries that I wasn't aware of, I just.
That's interesting. I wouldn't have even thought of that. Super American of me.
It's a very spiritual place. Like 90% of Bali practices Balinese Hinduism, which is very different from like India Hinduism. So everything I thought I knew about Hinduism, I was wrong.
Did you learn more about the religion while you were there?
Yeah, so the people of Bali are super friendly, and they love to tell you all about their country and all about their culture and their religion. And like our driver all week long, anytime I had a question, he was more than happy to answer it. And I had a lot of them. I'm like, I've never seen anything like this. What does this mean? How often do you do offerings? Like, what's that statue? Because there's statues all over the place, and they're all of their different gods and things like that. And so they're like more than happy to tell you. Yeah.
That's so cool.
That is really cool. What did you pack to bring with you? Did you bring your own shears? Were you prepared to use theirs?
Yeah, so everyone is provided a pair of shears. I brought my own, but I didn't use them because I'm left-handed. I wanted to bring my own just in case, but they even had left-handed shears there. So everyone gets a shear kit that is the same as the trainees, mainly because you don't want anything nicer than them as a distraction. Like if you have shears that are nicer than theirs, it's distracting. They want to know like, why do you have these ones? Why do you not have these ones? Those kinds of things. So you use the same exact pair of shears, same clips, same combs, everything. You can bring donations with you. So I brought some donations. I had made an Amazon wish list, and I said to a lot of my friends and my clients, they wanted to donate. I self-funded the trip itself. So I said anything extra that I'm going to bring, I'll make an Amazon wish list, and what gets bought, I'll bring with me, and what doesn't, I won't bring with me. So a lot of people purchased clips, combs, spray bottles, capes. I did a lot of things for the kids. So while we were there, we were lucky enough to do haircuts at one of the orphanages. So I brought a lot of stuff for the kids there. And then for the kids at the dump too, there were probably like between 30 and 40 kids, I would guess, there every single day after we got back from lunch. That's when they had come home from school. So I brought soccer balls, sidewalk chalk, bubbles, coloring books, all of those things.
I love that. That's so sweet. Because that, like, I remember hearing about your wish list, but to bring for the kids, I just think is really cute.
Yeah, it was one of my favorite things was at the orphanage after we gave them all their haircuts, we brought out all of this stuff to give them, and it was a lot of older kids.
Yeah.
So I don't even think we have orphanages in America anymore, but I've never been to one. So I didn't know what to expect. I thought it was going to be a lot of kids, and it was like young toddlers, and it was a lot of teenagers. And they were grateful for whatever you gave them. I did not think a bunch of teenagers would want bubbles, and they definitely accepted them very graciously. But I had brought 2 soccer balls, and I had brought one to the dump and then one to the orphanage. And when these teenage boys saw it, they were standing in the back making sure all of the younger kids got stuff. And when I held it in my hands, I was kind of looking like, who do I want to give it to? And they were standing in the back, and they had their hands raised, and they were like, miss. And so I threw it to them, and it made like their whole entire year probably that they got a soccer ball.
Oh my gosh.
That's really sweet.
Yeah.
My heart is like so heavy right now. I do want to, let's get back to the hair part of it though. Like Hunter said, you're teaching these people, and we have kind of talked about that with Alana a little bit, and then even just with each other. Like that has to be interesting, teaching in another, like to people who don't speak the language that you do.
Yeah.
So what's that like?
So you only have 5 days with them.
Yeah.
And you're told ahead of time, 5 days is more than enough time. And by Thursday, you'll be wondering why you're even there because they don't need you there anymore. And you don't believe it until you see it. But I think when it's a matter of life and death, the drive behind learning is a little different because by day 5, they were doing it. What took me a year to learn, they were doing after 5 days. And it's even more amazing because, like, in the prison, most of the girls in there do speak English.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different for those teams. But at the dump, they're uneducated. So they don't speak English. A lot of them didn't even graduate school. Because, fun fact, in Bali, you have to have a haircut to be able to go to public school. If you don't have a haircut within their regulations, you're not allowed to go. So a lot of these women are not educated. They don't know English. It hits different when you say that, right? Then you realize all of those kids that are out front now have a fighting chance at even graduating school.
I have cold chills.
Yeah.
My hair is standing up on my arms.
Like.
Yeah,
So you're not
So
just
it's-
teaching them a
yeah,
skill
and
so
you're-
that they can make money. You're literally teaching them the skill so that these kids can go to school and earn an education that we take for granted that's free.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So, like, it's really not just hair. We had 15 trainees at the dump. I think 4 of them are planning to work in salons, and the rest, I'm assuming, are going to stay in the dump. A lot of them are born into that neighborhood. They've lived there their whole lives. They probably don't want to leave because it's all they know. But they want to do things like give their kids the opportunity to even go to school.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't use the word humbling per se. I don't know that that's the best word to describe it. But it's definitely like you realize really quick how impactful your job really can be. Because I say all the time, like behind the chair, it's not just doing hair either. You have the opportunity to talk to your clients and get to know them on a level that they trust very few other people with. But this is like these women for 5 days put their entire lives and the lives of generations after them into my hands. That's a heavy weight to carry. So it puts more pressure on you too, because now you realize you've been entrusted with this and you want to handle it well and you want to do the best that you absolutely can to teach them. But when they don't speak the same language as you, it's incredibly hard to do that. So then it's like day 2, which I fully expected. Day 2 is pretty frustrating. And it's not like you're frustrated with them. It's just frustrated of like, how can I do this better?
Like, why can't I do this?
Like, yes, exactly. And then in my brain, I'm like, I have been formally trained on how to teach. And why is it still not going well?
A little bit of a language barrier.
Like,
just
it was
saying.
kind of crazy, right? And
Yeah.
I volunteer with preschoolers in my spare time. So I have told pretty much everyone, teaching grown women with a language barrier is actually way more similar to teaching preschoolers than it is hairstylists. Because there's a lot of hand motions. There's a lot of dances. You come up with a dance for the steps of a haircut. If they drop their clips or combs, they do the chicken dance because that's how they learn that we shouldn't be dropping our clips and our cones. It's a lot of like those kinds of things and interactions because that's really the only way you can communicate with them. You've never realized how technical we are until you can't be technical.
Yeah.
Until you can't use your words, you don't realize how easy it is to say, oh, a diagonal back section. Can't use your words because you can say that and they don't know what you're saying anyway.
You have to show them.
Mhm.
At what point in the trip did you have that realization that this was much more than just teaching them a simple haircut?
Day 1,
Got it.
like Monday.
Did you go in thinking you might have a realization like that? Or, yeah.
Yep. So I kind of knew I've done like outreach work and volunteer work before. So I kind of know how this goes of like, you'll go in with an expectation and you'll go in thinking, oh, I'm going to go do this. But what you don't realize is that when you pour out into other people, your cup gets filled at the same time, like in different ways. And that was the very first thing that I realized of like, I have been made fun of, laughed at, devalued my entire adult life because I chose not to go to college. I chose to do hair. So many people not in this industry don't even recognize it as a real job. I don't need the validation because I know that this is a real job. I know it's more than hair. I know what this industry has done for me. It's all the validation I didn't need, but other people might need of like, this is so much more than hair. Yeah.
I feel like I might need it.
A little second.
No, I'm just saying I want to do it.
I think that all 3 of us should go together next year.
Yeah.
My encouragement, like for both of you, but also anyone listening, whether they're in the industry or not, is that we're all given gifts. And this is a big realization. I knew, but I didn't know until the trip. Every single one of us is so uniquely created and we have such unique gifts. And whether you choose to use those gifts for the better of others' lives is up to you. The world will keep turning if you don't. Like if you don't go do these things, the world keeps turning, right? But life gets infinitely better when you choose to use them on other people. And when you choose to better the lives of other people's lives, like your life gets better. And you don't expect to do something like that and come back with this like being full of just all of this. I don't know. It's the most fulfilling thing I've ever done.
I didn't expect the podcast to be this powerful.
I didn't expect my trip to Bali to be this powerful.
So what question do we need to ask next? I'm still stuck on
I know, I kinda am
how
too.
amazing that must have been. And like you said, it's not, we choose to be in this profession. We don't need people to validate us, but when you have that experience, how does that change the way that you are approaching like behind the chair or even your daily life? Which this wasn't your first outreach trip, but in general, when you come back to life, because it's almost like you're taking a break from your life.
Yeah, it's hard. I feel like I had to like reintegrate myself into society a little bit. It was really, really hard to come back. And that's something that nobody talks about. You talk about how fulfilling this work is, but you also don't talk about just seeing like the brokenness of the world like that is hard on your heart. Coming back to the salon, it was like my first day back. All I did was cry. And it was like holding scissors. All I did was cry because I realized like in my brain, I have always thought it's just a haircut.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I know, oh, the conversations are, oh, this, that, or the other. But in my brain, it's literally just a haircut. But then I'm like, but there's kids in the world that if they don't get this exact cut, they don't get to go to school. There's people like this, there's a woman out there depending on this haircut to be able to pay her bills. She can't feed her kids tonight if she doesn't do this haircut. And to me, it's just a haircut. It changes literally every single way that you think. Your brain comes back hardwired a different way. And it's one of those things where you just have to experience it and you can't really explain it. I did tell one of my friends, I was really struggling when I came back figuring out what parts of the trip I wanted to tell people about and which I wanted to keep separate. Because I don't think all of the lessons that I learned on this trip are meant for everyone's ears. Some of those are definitely just for me. I didn't want to admit it to myself, but I definitely went out there doing a little bit of soul searching. And what I got and like the lessons I learned, right? Like I know some of that's just for me, but some of the things that you come back afterwards, I said, I almost feel like I'm mourning the version of me that went on this trip. And I don't know if it was just a more like innocent version of me thinking like, oh, I'm going to go to Bali. And then I got there. I'm like, oh my God, this is not the Bali you see on Instagram. I've never seen poverty like I have in that country, right? We don't have poverty like that in America. So I don't know if it was like an innocence or like what it was, but I said, I'm mourning the version of me that went and I'm relearning the version of me that came back because it's two very different people.
As someone who's known you for 6 years, I can tell you the Ray that I met is not the Ray that's telling this story. Mm-mm. And like, just even like before you went on the trip, like you have done some growth in yourself a lot, obviously over 6 years.
I would hope.
Yeah, who hasn't? But just hearing you tell the story of like your experiences and even the fact that you realize that some of those experiences are just for you. They're not for you to share. I feel like the Ray 2, 3, 4 years ago might have just, let me tell you everything because I'm so excited to share all of these things. But in reality, all of those things aren't for everyone.
Yeah.
And I like that. I think I would like want to tell everyone everything. But you'd never know until you go, until you do it.
You think that until you go. I journaled every night of the project that I was there. I'm not a big journaler, but I brought one with me and I said, you're going to journal every single night because you are going to learn things and then forget them and little things are going to happen and you won't remember because it's a jam-packed week. So I said, I'm going to journal every single night until the project is over and then I'm going to reread it when I get home. And then I've read it once since I got home and I was literally like a puddle on the floor, just sobbing. I don't think I was ready for that. I don't think I'm going to pick it back up for a while, but you do learn so much that when you get back, it's almost too much. I've had a lot of clients come in and they say, oh, tell me all about it. And I'm just like, what do you want to know? I need specific questions. We don't have enough time in the day. Like, can you just ask me specific questions? Because I don't know. Like, I can't tell you all about it. And I had one. She was so amazing. She came in. It was the last client of my first week back at work. And she came in and she'd sat down and she was like, oh, how was Bali? And I was like, yeah, it was great. I'm still processing. I'm still going over the things that you see are very hard to see. And the human body is not meant, like, our emotions and our heart can only handle so much. And it's not meant to carry the weight of some of the things that you see. So I said, I'm still processing it. I'm still going through the motions, those kinds of things. How was your trip? Because while I was gone, she was on a trip to Switzerland. And so we, the whole appointment, sat there and only talked about her. And as she stood up to leave, she said, I want to hear all about your trip next time I'm in. So I'm giving you a few more weeks to process. You said you weren't ready. And so I respected that. But I want to hear all about it when you come back. And I was like, I just wish everyone could be like you right now. And I don't want to be mean and tell people I don't want to talk about it. But you come back, you almost don't want to talk about it. Because you're still like, oh my gosh, I couldn't talk about it without crying for the whole first week. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely hits you way harder than you think it will.
Well, yeah, you had mentioned yesterday that you hadn't even talked to one of your best friends about the trip. Yep. And they were like, you're going to go on a podcast and talk about it before you tell me.
He's going to hear about it all on this podcast.
Right. Yeah. Then you don't have to repeat it. Just be like, send this link to everyone that wants to know. So you were there for 2 full weeks, but the project was only there for a week. Mm-hmm. So what did you do after the project?
Vacation.
Nice.
So I actually made a new friend on the trip. Mm-hmm. We had a mutual friend, but had never met. She's lived in LA for 10 years, but is from the same town that I live in now. So our mutual friend she had told her about this trip months ago. She never signed up. The week before I leave, there's a last minute edition. And so I reached out to our mutual friend and I said, is this who I think it is? And she said, yep, but didn't really give me a lot of context after that. And we ended up really clicking and really getting along well. And so she joined me on the second half of vacation. So we went and spent a few days on a neighboring island, took a ferry, and that was in the middle of nowhere, a pool, views of the ocean. That was it, which is needed after a project like this. And then after that, we took a boat back to the main island of Bali and did some cultural sightseeing, things like that. And then I went home.
This is a very ignorant question. I have 2 ignorant questions, but one of the first is, did you have a way to maintain contact with your people, or is there not cell phone reception in the dump?
Okay, that's not an ignorant question because that was one of my biggest worries going there. The time difference is what was the hardest because we were 13 hours ahead. So my friends here knew I was alive, but really when I was waking up, they were going to bed. You have cell phone service there. So if you have a phone that you can put a SIM card in, you can do that, or you can pay for international service. I upgraded my phone plan 2 days before I left, so data and text were free. So I just didn't call anyone. But you have access to all of that while you're in these different places. Most restaurants, anywhere that you're going to go, touristy places have free Wi-Fi that you can use. Some drivers, not mine, but some drivers there even have Wi-Fi in their car. So it's way easier than you would think to keep in contact with people. The cell phone service isn't great, but it works.
Yeah, you have a way to let people know you're still alive and kicking. I guess the second ignorant question is, what language do they speak in Bali?
So they speak Indonesian, which is all of the women at the dump. That's what they spoke. Some of the really older local people, some of them speak Balinese, and almost anyone that's educated speaks English. So even if they don't speak a lot of English, it's still enough. The signs out in public are all in English. Those are the 3 main languages in the country. So almost everyone speaks English. Just depending on how well they speak it is dependent on, No, most people speak English.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
So maybe we should brush up on one of those languages.
I learned 2 words in Indonesian.
Did you?
Give them to us.
Terima kasih is thank you.
Okay.
And lurus is straight. Like a straight haircut.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's it.
Now we know.
That's all I had to go off of.
That's funny. Nothing.
Nothing? You have nothing?
I'm good. I don't know. I just my brain I'm still having a hard time with the emotional weight part of it. Cause it's I really do want to do something like that. But I'm a wreck already. I'm worried that I would have to take weeks off work afterward for emotional recovery.
Anything worth doing is going to be hard.
Yeah.
So I think it's okay to be emotional. I don't think my clients have cared that I've gotten emotional in front of them. I'm not really someone that cries a lot in public, and I've done more of that in the last 3 weeks than I ever have.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really beautiful thing. I don't think it's a bad thing.
It's not like hurting tears.
No, it's more so just like the physical release of the things that you've experienced. At our graduation ceremony, all 3 of the volunteers that were there, and every single woman in that building was like a snotty, bawling mess. So I don't think it's a bad thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I really do want to do it. I feel like it could be really amazing.
What did they offer any resources for the come down? Because you're having, I feel like when you're there, you're having such this high, right? And anytime you get that high, there's a crash right after. Does Hair Aid offer services for the crash after the project?
Selena's gone on almost all of the trips. There's been 41 projects, and she's been on almost every single one of them.
Oh, wow.
So just from her experience, she offers a lot of advice. There were some other girls that had been on multiple trips before, so they were great at offering advice of really, like, the main thing is just to be kind to yourself and let yourself feel your feelings. They were really great at reaching out and following up afterwards. You're like in a Facebook group with all of the girls. And so it's easy to stay in contact. They follow up a few days after everyone gets home, that kind of thing. Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. It's probably, I'm sure you made friends on the trip, so you can reach out and kind of have somebody that's a shared experience you can talk with.
We were lucky because you never know when you put 8 strangers in a room together, especially women. You don't know what kind of personalities you're all going to get. And I really don't think that we could have gotten luckier with the group that went.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I don't ever plan on going back to Bali again because this trip was perfect in every single, like, I wouldn't change one thing about the trip. And so I'm scared that if I go back, I'm going to be comparing. And I already know that, like, the next trip won't line up with this one because this one was just phenomenal. So I want to go on more Hair Aid projects.
Different places.
Yeah, I want to go experience the different places.
I love that. And they all have different prices.
Yep.
Bali, you said, was one of the more
I want to
economical
say
ones.
Bali is the most affordable one. Guatemala may be more affordable just because, like, in America we're closer, so flights are a little cheaper. But Guatemala is brand new, so I think I'm going to give that one a few years before I go. Yeah.
Any feelings on what you want your next one to be?
I think Thailand.
Okay. I dig it.
Yeah.
Thailand it is. We're going.
Wherever you go, just let us know so that we can.
And I'll be planning it pretty much a year in advance. So.
That's what I was going to say. I need like at least a year to plan something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I had been on the Hair Aid website, but I hadn't gone and looked at like how much it costs and all of that because it wasn't my time, I guess. I don't
really
know. It wasn't.
At the time. You've been pretty busy too.
Yeah, but like I need to take a break from being so busy to like I'm doing all of this to serve myself. Let's be honest. I want more money, so I'm working hard.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like now is the time. Like,
well, what you said that spoke to me was when you said like when you pour into other people, because I personally in life have felt like my own cup has been empty for so long that I keep telling myself I have to pour into me. I have to pour into me. But I think the only way that I actually do pour into me is pouring into other people. And maybe I think that's why this whole like focus on yourself doesn't really work for me.
I don't think it works for most people.
Yeah.
I think that society has told us that for a long time. And I think we've fallen into the trap of thinking if we just put ourselves first and we just do what's best for us, then life will be easier.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's at all true. I think when you get really low and when you get really humble and you're with people that others might consider like lower than themselves. Like for me, it was 15 women that live at the Bali dump. When you do that, that's when you're going to get your cup filled the most. Yeah. I think when you do things like use the gifts that you have, right? And you make someone else's life better. There's literally nothing more. There's nothing more rewarding than a woman looking at you at your graduation ceremony and having practiced her English all morning long to tell you, like, thank you, God bless you. Now my kids don't have to starve.
Mm.
Like when they say things like that, you realize there's no amount of self-care, there's no amount of vacations you could take, nothing compares. And while I don't think that loving vacations and I don't think that having passions at work is a bad thing, I think it's finding the balance, because you will get caught up in this mindset of like, if I just had more of this or if I just had more of this. But when we take a minute to pause and slow down and really just sit there, that's when you get your cup filled. That's when you find purpose. Like you can have these great skills and you can use them in different ways. You can be in a great job. You can be teaching and educating and all of these things. And you can use your skills like that. And that's great. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I'm a very hard worker. And aside from this, I tend to keep myself pretty busy too. So I don't think it's a bad thing, but I think you do have to be really intentional every now and then about just slowing down, experiencing what other people in the world have to offer, because what I gave to those women, it does not compare to what they gave to me. And I didn't expect that, right? But like when you really slow down and you're just intentional on, okay, I'm going to take a break from how busy the world tells me I have to be, and I'm going to sit back and I'm going to figure out a way to do X, Y, and Z. Like that's when you find your purpose in life. And that's a really cool feeling. Like you really do feel different when you're walking in your purpose. It's something in you shifts, and it's a physical, tangible, like something about me is different.
Do you feel like when you came back from something like that, because our culture here in America is so go, 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 more, 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 I'm not happy until I have this, to like go somewhere where people are literally living in a dump and yet they're find joy in like the littlest of things, and then to come back into America where I feel like our society's kind of ungrateful, like, or just not, it's never enough, you know? Was that, what was that like? Because I feel like that would also impact me. Like on top of the weight of what these people are, the reality of what that is outside of our very sheltered country. Not that we don't have problems here, because obviously we do.
Right.
But like to see that on a whole nother level and then come back to our regular life here in America that's so different, like, and then people's attitudes.
So I think I had this realization when I got back of the people in other countries might have it bad. I'm still allowed to have bad days. My bad days might look different than theirs, and that's okay, because we weren't born into the same situations. We were dealt different cards, those kinds of things. But I said a while ago to one of my friends, my year of the word, I didn't know it until recently, or my word of the year. What did I just say?
I don't
Year
know.
of the word, or something like that.
My word
knew
of
what you
the
meant.
year is joy. And I didn't realize until this project, like I have had so much joy robbed from me the past few years, like to the point where it was so slow and it was so just a little bit here and a little bit there that I didn't even realize it. But the world really does rob you of your joy. Culture these days and society robs you of your joy. And you do get in those mindsets of thinking, if I only had this, then I'd be happy. If I only had this. And when you go to a place like this, it really does remind you that's not where your joy comes from. Like my joy does not come from material objects. It doesn't come from money in my pocket. These people are joyous and they live in garbage. And that's not going to make sense to you guys till I show you the pictures. But like, what do they, like, you look at these women and what do they have to be joyful about? And here they are, just like these just tangible, like you can feel the joy radiating out of them just to be there. And so you come back into society and you really have to reset your brain of like, society says this, culture says this, but I'm going to choose to find my joy elsewhere.
I like that.
It gives you a perspective of joy can be found in the smallest of things.
And joy's a choice.
Well, and I just feel like I used to feel that way sometimes, but I don't anymore. And I think what you said, it's like society does kind of rob you of it.
Yep.
Especially with everything. I mean, the world went through COVID, but that's been an extra challenge, I think. That made it harder.
And I feel like everywhere in the world, but like in our industry, people are so divisive, and it's like this person does this and this person does this, and it's like I hate this person and I hate this person, and this award show is rigged and that is this. And it's like, why does none of that even matters?
Yeah.
Are you making people feel better? Because at the end of the day, most of us got into this career because we want to make people feel better about themselves. We want to pour into other people. Hairstylists, successful hairstylists want other people to feel good.
Yes.
And I feel like a lot of that gets lost when you're in the world of like hair shows and award shows and this person's doing this celebrity's hair and why don't I get to do this and this opportunity when none of it matters.
Literally none of it matters.
Yeah.
None of it matters. And I think that is what I see myself taking that away is like none of this stuff that you used to care so much about matters.
Well, it's interesting for me having done hair like a long time.
37 years, everyone. That's how long she's been doing hair.
No, but before the internet, really. I mean, not really, but like before Instagram was a thing. I just like the thing for me about being a hairstylist now that's fucking exhausting, excuse my language, but is you are a brand. Like which I guess kind of is always been a thing, but not to the level that it is now, you know? And that is tiring because it used to just be about making this person feel better in your chair in that relationship. And then they would tell their friends. And then that's how you would build your client base. And now it's, do you have followers on social media? Do you have this? Do you have this? Everything is your brand. Everyone is branded. Everyone has a logo. Everyone has these things. And I'm just kind of like, I miss the part where it's like making someone feel better about because they just went through a divorce or whatever it is, or help using your gift to raise awareness for or teach someone and help them out of that type of situation. So I don't know. I just think I want to do something like this so bad because I feel like it could be everything that you said. I mean, chances are it will be, you know. But yeah, because sometimes I feel like it feels almost shallow, my job sometimes to me. And it's what I like doing, but I don't really feel like I'm fulfilling a purpose with it without that piece. So,
and I don't think the things like hair shows and awards and accomplishments are a bad thing.
No.
But we lose ourselves so quickly in the pursuit of them that it's nice to take a step back and really just get back to like, why do we do what we do? To make other people feel good. Yeah. And it's hard to do that, at least for me, in my everyday settings, like behind the chair, because you get in the zone and then your clients only know one side of you and it's the accomplishment side. Because that's all we do when we're with them and that's what we talk about and things like that. It's nice to take a step back and say, well, all those things are great. And when I go back to work, I'm going to go back to doing exactly what I was doing. It's nice to know that that's not all that there is out there.
Yeah.
I think that's a powerful sentence to end the podcast on. Okay, let's give the people some resources. Where can they figure out or where can they find Hair Aid?
So Hair Aid's social media they're most active on Facebook. They do have an Instagram page, and then they also have their website. Their website has all of the pricing, locations, and dates that have been finalized so far. And then if you wanted to get in contact with Selena, who is the founder, the CEO, all of her contact information is on all of those pages.
On the pages.
Yep.
Okay. Where can people find you?
On Instagram.
Okay, what's your
What's
handle?
your handle?
At Stylist Ray with an E.
And we'll put some pictures
Visuals.
and some videos here, but Ray posted the whole time she was there. So she's got story highlights and stuff like that, right, from Bali. So you guys can see more of her trip and the good things along with everything that she was able to experience. If you want to follow us on our social media journeys, I'm Herix Hunter on all the things.
I'm Erica the Redhead on all the things.
And our podcast is Break Room Banter Pod on all the things. If you want to find additional ways to support us, you can follow our Patreon. It's www.patreon.com/Break Room Banter Pod. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere else you get your podcast. Like, comment, subscribe, all the things. And until next time, remember,
You always have a seat at our table.
bye.